Hello. Well, through your endurance and the sacrifice of many in our wider community, we're now today at the point that we can have limited reopening of our churches for worship. From today, that means there's 10 people can be inside with one person leading the service, and then from Monday the 9th of November, inside 20 plus 1. And then outside, from today, 20 people near the church building plus one faith leader, and then after the Sunday the 8th of November, starting on Monday the 9th, 50 plus 1 outside. And it's a tribute to the response that you've made throughout this long period of difficulty that we're in a position where the government has confidence in us as part of what they're broadly calling the religious communities or the faith sector, that with their words, with strict requirements contained in a COVID safe plan, that we can reopen. As you know, I've spoken about this before, there's been some contention as to whether places of religious gathering, generally described, are at a greater risk than other places. There was a concern from government that they weren't subject to the same kind of regulatory devices of the hospitality industry, and so they had some hesitancy, but it was the argument that we put that we were already well advanced in having strong plans, strong COVID safe plans that would enable us to operate at these levels safely. So I'd encourage you in your local church communities to activate those COVID safe plans, to start planning for, as soon as you can, the resumption of worship along these lines, because I think it's going to be quite important for us to be able to demonstrate at even at this small level of opening opportunity that we can comply with all those requirements. And then as we do that, I think there'll be far greater confidence for us to be able to move to increased steps, and who knows what the COVID normal Christmas is going to like, probably be much truncated from what we normally would expect. But I think if we take advantage of this opportunity that starts today for the effectively a bit less than a fortnight, and then from Monday the 9th of November take opportunity of those opportunities to meet in our churches, we're going to have some evidence of the effectiveness of our COVID safe plans, of our ability to put them into place, and for our churches to be safe places for worship. Now I know it's not going to be ideal, and there's probably many of you thinking, well, the threshold of numbers won't really meet our congregational requirements, but I think it's going to be important that we generally across the diocese take the opportunity of those steps forward, because I think if a significant number of people hang back, it's going to be much harder for us to use the evidence of effectively applying COVID safe plans in our multiple contexts that will argue for the safer reopening to a greater degree in the future. And I think if we don't do that, it's quite likely that our reopening pathway will be delayed. It could be delayed for some time. We've resolved to take the opportunity for the ordination of the deacons who are being prepared for their ordination as priests in November, to do this in the local parish context, mostly where they are ministering, and we are grateful that that will allow us inside the church now to have 20 people, in addition to the bishop who's leading the worship, or if it's outside, there'd be 50 plus the bishop who's leading that worship. So we'll be amongst the team of bishops, spreading out to the different parishes to participate in helping equip this next generation of leaders, because we know that if things just float along, it could be quite delayed and quite uncertain, and the new normal might not quickly allow us to gather in the large numbers we've become used to, and joyously and celebrated that we've become familiar with in St. Paul's Cathedral. And that's difficult for big churches like St. Paul's Cathedral and other big churches that have big congregations, because these numbers don't give much optimism of anything that looks like worship regimes as normal. But I'd encourage you to take advantage of these small steps, do that as widely as you can, and we're glad for the feedback about the COVID safe plans that you've got in place. I know we've received them already, but if there are updates, improvements that you want to make, but there are things that conform to a template that comes from the Victorian government that we'll need to be able to show that our reopening complies with. So thanks for all that you've done during this incredibly demanding period. This transition time won't necessarily be an easy one either, but bless you as you continue ministering to God's people, proclaiming the Word of God, that it might be fully known in our wider community. And let's hope for the day when we can move around a little more freely. That's forecast to be from Monday the 9th of November onwards, and enjoy the wider community we have as members of this Diocese of Melbourne, which of course takes in what's being described now as Metro Melbourne and regional Victoria, aspects of both and the different rules that apply. So bless you, strengthen you and keep you in all that you do in God's service.